Hello and welcome back to, for the very first time to the channel, I'm William Gwyn, and today we are going to be talking about books that you can finish in a day. My favourite books that you could finish in a day. So for this I went with anything under 300 pages basically, which doesn't mean that you will actually finish it in a day, but they're very short, very snappy, usually quite fast paced, and yeah, if you're dedicated for the day you can get through them. And quite a few of these I actually did finish in a day, and so I've got 11. I was trying to go for 10 but I just couldn't pick one to rule out. So it did end up being 11. Hopefully there's some books here that you love. Hopefully there's some that pique your interest. But anyway, let's just get right on into it with one that I'm sure most people have heard of, and that is Legends and Lattes. This is very wholesome, intimate, small-scale fantasy, very different to most of the fantasy books out there. And it's bite-sized, it's about 300 pages, and yeah, and that's with quite a big font as well. And so this is about an orc, a veteran orc, who settles down to run a coffee shop. And that is her passion. And I understand that. I do love a good coffee, but that's often not reflected in fantasy for sure. And so I love that it goes against all of the tropes that we're used to. And it's a very different book. It feels very fresh for that reason, which makes it feel even shorter because you can get through it so much quicker because it's so original and unique and easy to get through. And I do have a review actually on the channel for Legends and Lattes if you want to check that out. But this is one of those that it may not be your favourite book of all time, but I think the majority of people will really enjoy the journey. So that's the first one I'm talking about today. And then next up, another short book, hence why it's on the video. This is Piranesi, which if you want to see a great discussion and chat on Piranesi, I would watch Philip Chase's review. He just talks about this book brilliantly and makes everyone want to read it basically. And yeah, I wouldn't be able to put why I love this so eloquently, but I love that Piranesi is again a very different type of fantasy book. We've got a very small cast of characters, and yeah, it's kind of an alternate dimension where someone is on their own, and a lot of his epistolary forms are reading through their diaries, and so piecing together kind of these fragments of their memory to find out what is actually going on. And it can be quite ominous at times, and there's a lot of tension. But Piranesi's writing is just really easy to kind of just binge. And there's a lot to this book. There's a lot to dive into beyond reading it. It's quite thought-provoking at times as well. But as I said, it's bite-sized. You can get through this in a day. And it's a great read that I recommend to basically anyone. And then I have a book by Stephen King. And this is Later. And so I think I've read 10 texts by Stephen King now. And Later is in my top 3 favourites of his. This is one of his newest releases. I think it came out in 2019 or maybe 2020. And it seems to be inspired by Sixth Sense. So there's a boy who can see the dead, but only for the few minutes after they have died. But of course, with Stephen King, he's going to take this in some strange directions in ways that we couldn't even imagine. And this is gripping, and it is actually brilliant. I love how kind of the detective style was brought into it as well, and the criminal aspects, and how this power could be exploited by others. And he makes it feel very real. And Stephen King, he just has this amazing ability to bring characters to life. And Later is just yet another example of that. And so, yeah, I could have mentioned any of Stephen King's books for those reasons, but one that is being small. Usually his books are quite big, but Later, again, is an anomaly. And yeah, that is why Later is on this list. And another book, as with most of these, I love them, and that's why I want to recommend them, and why I've taken an excuse to do this video to talk about the books I love, and hopefully you'll pick them up as well. Now, going in a slightly different direction, I've got a graphic novel, and this is Wolverine Old Man Logan. I think this is actually the first graphic novel I read. It is very different, people say, to the majority. I've not actually read too many graphic novels, but there is another one I'll be talking about later on. But Wolverine Old Man Logan, if you've watched the film Logan, which is one of my favourite films of all time, it was inspired by this. It's dark, it's gritty, it's basically the X-Men, but set in the future where the world's gone pretty bad. But Logan, he's an old man now, and sometimes his skills are still being called into action. And it is absolutely brilliant. It is gripping. It's very moving. I love the exploration of kind of the themes of duty and hardship and love and loss in this graphic novel. It is done brilliantly. And again, it's pretty small. And obviously because it's a graphic novel, it's usually a format that you can get through pretty quickly, especially when it's not too long. And so that is Wolverine Old Man Logan. And now one that I don't have physically. This is a novella, and possibly the best novella I've had the pleasure of picking up and reading. And this is Hellmouth by Giles Christian. So this is medieval. We're following a mercenary group who are in a conflict, and they find them stumble across a castle which the defences are facing inwards. So it's keeping something in, not people out. And so there is a hole, and it's called the Hellmouth. And somehow, for some reason, this group of characters have to journey down it. And so this is an awesome premise, and Hellmouth is absolutely terrifying. I really didn't think I thought it'd be tense, but I didn't think I'd actually be scared. But yeah, I had goosebumps at times. And Giles Christian does this brilliantly. He's got a thing of scenes like he has in Camelot, one of his Arthurian books, where there's a sequence in caves, and he just makes it terrifying. He has a way of just making caves feel like you're actually in it. And yeah, so that's terrifying, but it means it's a visceral, vivid experience. And Hellmouth is just one of the best novellas, if not the best, that I've had the pleasure of picking up. Then I have a Western. I'm covering quite a lot of genres in this video. I've got a Western, True Grit by Charles Portis. I highly recommend the films, the one in the 1960s, I believe, with John Wayne, and also the newer one that has got Matt Damon in it, as well as a cast of other brilliant characters. Mattie Ross is one of the best figureheads of a book I've ever come across. She is a 13-year-old teenage girl looking for the man who killed her father. It's a pursuit of vengeance, but through the law, so it is justice. And this is just a book where the characters at the forefront, they're brought to life. One of the best examples of uses of dialogue I've ever seen in literature. It feels real, it feels vivid, it builds characterization, builds tension, and it just feels like actual dialogue between people in real life. And as I said, the characters are at the forefront, at the heart of the story, and that is why this is so brilliant. A lot of the action's great as well, and the plot is really intriguing and engaging, and there's great plot progression. But as I said, the characters are the best of it, and they are some of the best characters I've ever had the pleasure to read. That's what I say with a lot of the books I'm talking about today, because they're some of my favourites. And so, yeah, True Grit is up there. And then another genre, I'm going to be talking about Normal People by Sally Rooney. You may have watched the BBC adaptation, which was just absolutely extraordinary in my opinion. This is very different to what I would usually read. It is a romance, quite a tragic, heartbreaking romance, but it is really a story how Connell and Marianne, the two central characters in this, their lives are just intertwined for some reason, where even when they separate and come together and separate again, they just can't leave each other. They are drawn together by this hidden force, and that is explored brilliantly in a very visceral way, again by Sally Rooney, and you just fall in love with these characters, and you feel their every moment of joy as well as their moments of sadness and tragedy as well. And this really is a roller coaster of emotions that, yeah, it's not for the faint of heart, but I highly recommend. Again, one of my favorite books. Again, oh my word, I'm being so repetitive in this video, I'm very sorry, but yeah, I love that as well. And now for a bit of nostalgia, going back to a book that I probably read first when I was probably 8 or 9. I think Papa Gwyn read it to me first. This is The Book of Three. Book 2 of this series was made into a film by Disney. Maybe not Disney, maybe I'm not sure. Maybe Pixar, but that was called The Black Cauldron. That is book 2 of this series. And The Book of Three is a great bite-sized book, again, that is suitable for adults, but also teenagers and children alike. I love the fantastical world that we have here, and we have an oracular pig, a pig that talks. And so what more could you ask for? And I've had Philip Chase talk about The Book of Three as well, and yeah, it's just wonderful transportation into a new world with a great cast of characters, a lot of fantasy tropes that we love in this form that, as I said, is suitable for adults and children alike. I think there's something for everyone, and especially if you're a parent who you're wanting to get your children into reading, I think this is a book that'd be great, because it certainly worked with me when Papa Gwyn read it to me when I was much, much younger than I am now. And then I think I only have 2 or 3 to go. Next up, I have Egil's Saga. So this is a saga from the sagas of the Icelanders. I've been talking on the Brothers Gwyn lately, and also on this channel, about I want to address the misconceptions that these older texts, such as the sagas, are kind of, that no one can read them unless you're kind of trained to read these texts, which I think is just, I don't understand why these misconceptions have come about, because the sagas of the Icelanders, especially Egil's Saga, is so accessible, so easy to read, and so engaging. I absolutely love the evolution of this story. It's so different to anything that you would read now, because it is an individual story. It is a story of an individual and their kind of tales throughout their life. It's not plot driven, it's character driven, which means that Egil, he comes into conflict with the rulers of Norway, but then he just travels to England and he takes part in the conflicts and chaos in that kingdom as well, and then he goes to Iceland, and it's more about his journeys. It's not attached to one plot line, and I absolutely love how that is so different than anything we would read now. And as I said, it's so accessible and it's very funny. In these sagas, there is so much kind of darker humour, and it's very wry and witty and sharp as well. I love the twists and turns and how the characters will kind of one up and manage to get out of these situations that they're trapped in, that it seems there's no escape from. And yeah, the sagas are just so creative, and I love following them for that reason, among many others as well. But yeah, that is why I really think that a lot more people should try these older texts like Beowulf and the sagas of the Icelanders and so on and so forth. So yeah, please do, if you get a chance, pick up Egil's Saga. Earlier on, I said that we'd be talking about another graphic novel today, and today, I'm going to talk about another, and that is Watchmen. And this is a canonical text which apparently changed the graphic novel genre forever because of its impact both on the perception of the genre, but also inspiring others who would write graphic novels in the future. This is about superheroes, but where do they stem from? And it's people where there is some supernatural elements where there are greater powers at play, but for the most part, our superheroes don't actually have powers. They are vigilantes, a bit like Batman, but not as nice as Batman. They're very flawed. They've all got their own motivations and agendas, and I love how this looks into their childhood and really looks at, from a psychological aspect, why they have become the people they have. And there is in the present timeline, there's a murder, and you're trying to work out who's done it and who are they targeting and why. But then we jump backwards and forwards between different timelines that reveal a lot about the characters in the present. And I love how that is really done in a Hansel and Gretel way, where we have breadcrumbs and are piecing the puzzle together. And it's so engaging, and one that I've read quite recently, so maybe recency bias, but yeah, this is quite a long graphic novel, but again, because it is a graphic novel format, I've read this in a day and a bit, and so yeah, I'm sure that you could as well if you've got that time. And another one that is so easy to read, and you could definitely finish that in a day. And now two others that I'll talk about quickly is, first up, The Outsiders. There's a film of this with Tom Cruise, Patrick Swayze, and many others. It was written by, I think Essie Hinton was only 20 when she wrote this. It's set during the 50s or maybe the 1960s, and it is about the kind of conflict in America between the Socias and the Greasers. So kind of the Socias were seen as the rich kids and the Greasers as the poor kids, and they would often come into conflict in neighborhoods. And so yeah, The Outsiders is following a group of Greasers and their conflict with the Socias, and kind of it is very powerful, and it's got a great narrative on kind of how your childhood affects who you become as an adult, and how the people you surround yourself with really do affect you, but they can be your saving grace, but they can also bring you down with them. And yeah, I love that discussion in The Outsiders, and yeah, it's just absolutely amazing. I'm sure most of you have heard of it. It is a classic for a reason, and also a film that many people love, including me. And then last up, I've got A Monster Calls by Patrick Ness. This has also been adapted into a film, and this has Sigourney Weaver in it. But A Monster Calls is about a boy trying to come to terms with his mother who is dying. And so yeah, it's very tough read at times, and it's very emotional. I cried at this, but it is absolutely brilliant. It is a masterful creation by Patrick Ness. The perfect balance of kind of showing this boy and bringing him to life, and also discussing with the reader these themes of love and loss and trauma and tragedy and trials and tribulations. And as I said, it's got a lot of tough themes with his mother dying, but also this boy is bullied as well. And so yeah, there's a lot that is hard to kind of read through A Monster Calls. But if you feel like you're in a place where you can do that, I really highly recommend reading this, because it is just very powerful, and it has a very lingering impact on you. And it changed my perception of life, and I often reflect and think on this a lot. And it's definitely a book you could read in a day because it's quite small. And yeah, I just could not tear my eyes away from it, because it was just that gripping and just tantalizing. And yeah, it is brilliant. But yeah, they are 11 books, I think it's 11, that I think that you could read in a day. And yeah, very short books that maybe if you're kind of in a reading slog and you're finding it hard to get through much of a book, pick one of these up, because often when it's a shorter book, it's quite easy to kind of binge it and get back into that reading mode. And so, yeah, they are the books that I recommend for a quick, fast, short read that you can read in a day. Hopefully you've enjoyed this video, and yeah, hopefully some of these reads intrigued you. But everyone, as always, thank you so much for watching, and stay safe.